A baby is staring at you right now, not blinking, not scanning the room, not drifting, locked onto your face with an intensity that makes fully grown adults shift in their seats. Most people smile back, make a noise, wave a hand, but a team of neuroscientists at the University of Cambridge decided to measure what was actually happening during that stare. And what they found in 2017 using functional near-infrared spectroscopy forced an entire field to reconsider its fundamental assumptions. When a baby locks eyes with you, their brain waves begin to synchronize with yours. The same neural frequencies, the same oscillatory rhythms, firing across two entirely separate brains simultaneously, not similar patterns. Identical coupling. Mutual gaze produced the strongest interbrain neural synchronization the researchers had ever recorded between two individuals of different ages. That baby was not staring because they had nothing better to look at. That baby was downloading your neural architecture, using your brain as a live template to build their own. And by the time you smiled and looked away, the transfer was already complete. Here is the theory most people carry around without ever questioning it. Babies stare because their vision is blurry, and faces happen to be the most interesting-looking thing within range. It sounds perfectly reasonable. Newborn visual acuity is limited to roughly 8 to 12 inches, about the distance from the crook of your arm to your face. But by 3 months, that range expands enough to see anything in the room. The ceiling, the dog, the window, the laundry pile growing in the corner. They can now look at anything, and they keep choosing your face. Every single time. That is not blurry vision behavior. That is a preference hardwired before birth. The subcortical face processing pathway, running from the superior colliculus through the pulvinar to the amygdala, orients newborns toward face-like stimuli within minutes of delivery, before the visual cortex has even started processing shapes. Evolution did not wait for the baby to learn what a face is. It preloaded the template. The satellite dish metaphor is the closest analog to what the neonatal brain actually does when it locks onto a caregiver's face. It does not arrive empty. It arrives pre-configured, already pointed at exactly the right frequency. The caregiver's face is the signal. The mirror neurons are the receiver. And the neural synchrony that happens during mutual gaze is the download. Consider what the mirror neuron system accomplishes in the first hours of life. Newborns who are less than 42 minutes old have been documented imitating tongue protrusion and mouth opening, actions they have never seen performed, on a face they have never been taught to map. The inferior frontal gyrus and inferior parietal lobule activate during these imitation events, demonstrating an action-perception coupling that is not learned. It is installed. The baby sees a tongue extend and fires the motor program to extend its own tongue, not through trial and error, but through a neural architecture that arrived pre-wired to mirror observed actions in real time. Layer the Cambridge synchronization data on top of this. When the baby stares and you stare back, the neural oscillations do not merely overlap, they entrain. The adult brain leads, the infant brain follows, and the entrainment window, the degree of phase-locked coupling, predicts vocalization attempts. Babies whose brains synchronize more tightly with their caregivers vocalize more, reach more, engage more. The baby is not passively observing. The baby is using your neural signal as developmental scaffolding, a live broadcast of how a human brain organizes attention, emotion, and social response. By 3 months, this system has already produced measurable outcomes. The baby has logged thousands of hours processing the caregiver's face, every expression, every micro-movement, every shift in tone. A team at the University of Washington found that by 5 months, an infant can distinguish between a genuine smile and a performed one. By 6 months, social referencing is operational. The baby looks at the caregiver's face, reads the emotional display, and uses it to calibrate their own response. Parent looks frightened. The baby freezes. Parent looks excited. The baby reaches. Parent looks calm. The baby explores. That unblinking stare was never idle. It was data collection conducted at biological clock speed. and the stranger who gets the longer stare is not preferred. The stranger is a puzzle. The violation of expectation response shows that babies look longer at novel stimuli, at things they have not yet fully processed. The caregiver's face is already a complete data set. The stranger's face is unfinished computation. The baby stares longer at the stranger not because something is wrong, but because the processing engine has identified an incomplete file and allocated resources to resolve it. Between 3 and 7 months, something changes. The amygdala, the bilateral almond-shaped structure deep in the temporal lobe, responsible for threat detection and emotional salience, completes a maturation phase that transforms passive face processing into active classification. The baby who smiled at everyone at 3 months suddenly screams at a stranger's approach at 7 months. Pediatricians call it stranger anxiety. Parents call it a phase. Neuroscience calls it a security upgrade. The amygdala has accumulated enough facial data to build a classification engine. Faces that match the caregiver template, processed thousands of times, associated with warmth, food, safety, vocal prosody, pass through without triggering alarm. Novel faces activate the threat assessment pathway. Elevated cortisol, heightened startle response, avoidance behavior. The baby did not become fearful. The baby's security system came online. But here is the line that matters. Not every baby who avoids eye contact is running a security protocol. Healthy stranger discrimination is context sensitive. The baby cries at the unfamiliar face but calms when the caregiver is present and reassuring. The baby still seeks the caregiver's face. The baby still tracks familiar eyes. If you notice a baby who consistently avoids all faces, caregiver and stranger alike, who does not track your eyes, who seems to look through you rather than at you, that pattern is different. Reduced or absent gaze behavior in infancy is one of the earliest observable markers researchers associate with atypical social development. It does not automatically mean something is wrong, but pediatric neuroscientists are unambiguous. The brain's plasticity in the first 2 years of life never reaches that height again. Early identification changes outcomes. Intervention at 6 months produces results that intervention at 24 months cannot replicate. The parenting books got it backwards. Stranger anxiety is not a regression. It is developmental proof that the amygdala's facial recognition engine now has enough data to classify faces. And the baby who screams at unfamiliar faces is running a discrimination protocol that took millions of years of primate evolution to engineer. Think about what this system actually accomplishes. In the ancestral environment, an infant who smiled at every approaching face was an infant who could not distinguish a caregiver from a predator. That design flaw was lethal. Natural selection solved it by building the amygdala maturation window, a developmental phase where the infant's threat detection system transitions from passive to active, from accepting all faces to classifying them against an internal template built from the first months of life. The screaming at the stranger's face is the system announcing, "I now have sufficient data to determine that this face has not been authorized. Access denied." The adult equivalent would be a facial recognition system at a corporate security checkpoint that suddenly started working after months of being offline. Nobody would call it a malfunction. Nobody would call it a phase. They would call it exactly what it is. The system is now operational, and the baby's version is more sophisticated than any corporate security system on Earth. It processes not just identity, but emotional valence, vocal prosody match, scent association, and context simultaneously. The stranger who approaches slowly while the caregiver holds the baby gets a different amygdala response than the stranger who reaches for the baby while the caregiver is in another room. The system is not binary. It is probabilistic, context-weighted, and calibrated in real time by the same neural synchrony data the baby has been collecting since the first hour of life. The parent does not need to train the baby to stare. The parent does not need to fix the stranger anxiety. Both behaviors are outputs of neural systems operating exactly as biological engineering intended. The baby's only requirement from you is the signal. Be present. Be readable. Hold the gaze when it finds you. Because the satellite dish is already pointed. It has been pointed since before birth. And the only variable that determines the quality of the download is the consistency of the signal source. Every mirrored expression is a calibration event. Every returned stare is a synchronization window. Every time the baby tracks your face across the room, the prefrontal cortex receives another data packet from the most important source of developmental information in the infant's environment. You. Not the mobile hanging above the crib, not the educational toy with the flashing lights, not the carefully curated sensory stimulation kit. You, your face, your expressions, your presence during the unseen hours that nobody will ever photograph. Drop a comment below. Was there a moment when a baby's stare stopped you cold? When you felt, with total certainty, that something was looking back? Not just looking, recognizing, processing, reaching. Because if there was, now you know exactly what was happening. That was not imagination. That was not parental projection. That was two nervous systems recognizing each other across a developmental gap that science is only beginning to measure. And you were right to feel it. You were right every single time. Go back to that first image. The baby locked onto your face, the unblinking intensity, the stillness that made you slightly uncomfortable. Now see what was really happening. Every return of that gaze was construction work, not metaphorical construction, literal neuroanatomical assembly. The prefrontal cortex was being wired by the data your face provided. Which expressions signal safety? Which tones mean food is coming? Which shifts in your brow indicate something novel in the environment? The mirror neurons were not just copying your expressions for entertainment. They were using your motor patterns as a template to calibrate the infant's own motor programs. The same programs that will eventually produce speech, gestural communication, and emotional display regulation. The baby who stared at you across the room was not admiring you. They were using your neural architecture to build their own, one data stream at a time, in a process so fundamental to human development that when it is disrupted, when the stare does not happen, when the synchrony does not form, the downstream effects on language acquisition, emotional regulation, and social cognition are measurable for years. Dr. Edward Tronick demonstrated this with devastating clarity through the still face paradigm. When a mother's face goes blank, present but unresponsive, the baby attempts to re-engage within seconds. Big smiles, pointing, urgent vocalizing, every tool in the toolkit. When nothing works, cortisol spikes. The baby either escalates to distress or collapses into a mirrored blankness. Recovery after re-engagement is rapid, but not instant. The stare is not passive attention. It is an active communication link, and when that link drops, the infant nervous system treats it as a system-level failure. If someone in your life is raising a baby and constantly wondering whether what they are doing matters, whether the hours of held gaze and mirrored faces and quiet staring contests add up to anything, send them this video. Because every time they hold that gaze, they are not just bonding. They are literally building a brain, wire by wire, frequency by frequency, downloaded through the most sophisticated social interface evolution has ever produced. 15,000 years of evolutionary pressure did not give babies big, round eyes by accident. Those eyes are not decoration. They are the entry point of the most complex social calibration system in the known biological world. A system that begins operating before the first feeding, before the first word, before conscious memory has even begun to form. The satellite dish arrived pre-configured. It was pointed at one frequency from the moment the neural tube closed during the 5th week of gestation. That frequency was the caregiver's face. The mirror neurons stood ready to receive the signal. The superior temporal sulcus was primed to decode emotional valence from facial movement. The amygdala was scheduled to come online at precisely the right developmental window to begin classifying faces into safe and unknown. None of this was random. None of this was learned in the first weeks of life. The hardware was installed before birth. The face was always the target. And the stare, that long, unblinking, weirdly intense stare that makes adults laugh nervously and say things like, "I think she's judging me," was always the handshake protocol. The moment when two brains, separated by decades of development and vastly different levels of conscious experience, found the same oscillatory frequency and locked on. The infant was not judging. The infant was synchronizing, building, absorbing. Running the most ambitious data acquisition project in the history of that particular brain. Every parent who has sat in a quiet room at 3 a.m., exhausted, staring down at a baby who was staring back, with an expression that seemed far too deliberate for someone who cannot yet hold their own head up. Every one of those parents was watching the same thing. A brain reaching out for another brain. Not figuratively, measurably, frequency by frequency. The first language was never a word. The first language was a look. And the grammar of that language, proximity, gaze duration, neural phase locking, mirror response, is written into the biology of every human being born onto this planet. Before your child spoke, before they pointed, before they smiled with intent, they stared. And in that stare, they said everything they would ever need to say in one sustained, wordless transmission. I found you. I chose your frequency. Build me. And every time you stared back, you answered.